Yeah, hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new tutorial. This is Web Studio Richter and today we are talking about some kind of a nice feature in CSS. It is called columns. So columns you usually know from the world of paper, so especially from newspapers. So there you have like a paper with a fixed width and the texts are separated into columns, so for a better reading experience. So for example, that you don't have to read from one side of the page of the paper page to the other side, and you are maybe losing the line anyhow or something like that. So in the online world, so in the world of the internet and web pages, you can use this feature as well, and it is rather very useful, especially as well for text, because when you're having like this wide screens or something like that, what we are using today in computers and on the laptop, the 16:9 or 16:10 anyhow, the texts are appearing, if they are from one side, from the left corner to the right corner, not very user friendly, and for that this feature is really helpful. So let's start. I already prepared some basic HTML structure here. So we're having a div container with an ID of wrapper, and in this div container we are having a heading, a main heading, and two subheadings, followed by paragraphs, simple paragraphs. So you see there's not a lot of magic in it, it's very basic setup. So let's begin with the CSS. So just for the beginning, to normalize everything a bit, we are making the body padding 0 and the margin we set as well to 0. We're making the height to 100% and the width to 100%. So that's all about it. Now we can start with the magic of columns. And here we will call now the wrapper, the ID wrapper, so this parent element here, to define and style these child elements. So you're having here like a normal text which is followed by headlines, subheadings in one column, and we want to change this because you see it's not changing, if rather it doesn't matter if it is wider or more narrow the screen, it's always the same one column style. So to change this we are using the attribute columns. It is called like that, so easy to remember. We have to use here some kind of browser prefixes. So WebKit is for the Chrome, for example, and mods is for the Mozilla, and the standard attribute. So, and this attribute is used rather easy. So in the first setup you are giving the minimum width of your column. So if this minimum width is reached, something will happen. What will happen we will see in a second. So we say the column shouldn't be smaller than 200 pixels, and we want to say how many columns do we want on the screen, maximum. So we say here 3 columns. So now something will change because I'm using here the Firefox, so the Mozilla column prefix will work here. So we make the same, and you see we're having 3 columns now, just as we wanted it and as we defined it. So what is happening? We're having 3 columns. I make it rather wider the screen, the 3 columns are staying, and just the width of the 3 columns is getting larger. But what is not happening, that the width is getting smaller than our defined 200 pixels minimum width. So if this is happening, let's have a look. Still working, but now it's changing. So you see the columns are getting smaller than 200 pixels, and then we defined change something. And what is changed now is here the column is the size of the columns. The size of columns is decreased to 2. So you have here like a break in the text jumping up to the next column. So it's really perfectly working. And if we even make it more narrow, it is changing to a one column profile, so it's like perfect for mobile phones or something. And you see it's just actually one attribute. We have here just the 3 because of the support, the prefixes for the browsers, but actually this is all about it, and you have a great functionality for it. So let's continue just to style it a bit more fancy. We want to have these gaps here styled. So and that we can reach with a attribute WebKit column gap. So we want to give it the size, so how wide this gap shall be, and let's say we make here now 20 pixels. So the same for Mozilla and the standard one. That's actually all about it already. So you see, if I change this to, let's say, 100 pixels, or I change it to 10 pixels, or even just to 1 pixel, so you see it's very narrow now, just 1 pixel gap here. So, but I would say 20 pixels is rather fine. Yeah. So again, we can now have a look at these gaps. What is about making some more styling here? Another very useful attribute for these columns is the attribute column rule. With that we can define some lines here, so like borders. And the syntax is even very close to borders. So we are defining the column rule for WebKit, for Mozilla, and that's it. So the syntax is like with border, CSS border, the combined syntax. So first you're setting the width of the strands of the line, so we make it here 2 pixels. Then you're defining the look of the line, so we make it here like a dotted line and give it a color of black. So let's make the Mozilla prefix so that we can see what is happening. And you see a line is appearing in the middle. Maybe we will change it here to light blue, then it looks not so strong. Light blue. So that's actually all about it. These are the basic commands for CSS columns, but already you can see with these basic commands you can reach a lot. And all the functionality which is giving your page like a responsive experience. The users are very pleased for that because they can read very smoothly your text without losing the line because of their wide screen or whatever. And if they have a very narrow screen, they don't have to read now 3 very narrow columns, but it is changing just one very plain and straightforward column, like we are used to it from mobile designs. So, and if you are not connected now, it's not connected anyhow to the columns design, but it is perfectly fitting here. Just as a small tip, you can make the text justify, just like you have it in newspapers as well. Oh, sorry, of course, text align. So you see, you're having here now perfectly newspaper line layout. So, and what is perfect about these columns as well, just to give you a quick hint, you can use it as well perfectly for HTML lists or even for HTML navigations. You can see it here. I set it up already here, some basic unordered list with 4 items in it, with like entries like we are actually used it from navigations. I normalized the body here as before, made here some basic stylings not connected to the columns actually for the unordered list and the list items. So, and here I introduced the column attributes. So I will fastly delete it now so that you can see how it's looking normally if I have this basic setup here. So we are having here like this unordered list with centered items in it, text line centered, light gray color, background color, and yeah, small padding, and yeah, nothing special. And if I'm adding here now the columns again, so WebKit columns, 4 columns, because we're having 4 entries in the list, and like a gap of 20 pixels like we had before, you see it is jumping back here to a horizontal list now, or a navigation bar as you used it from wider screens. But if the screen is getting more narrow, we are experiencing the same functionality like we had it with text before. Just we have now a list here, it is jumping to 2 columns, and if it is very small and narrow, we're having 1 column. So it's like looking like a perfect, easy, basic setup of HTML navigation. Yeah, this is just very useful if you're having very basic lists and you want them to be usable in the mobile world and on the desktop PC. Yeah, that's actually all about it. Let's have a quick check for the support in the browsers in the Can I Use database. You see it's rather good supported in all the browsers which are used. Just most of the browsers like Firefox and Chrome need some prefixes like we used it, WebKit and the MOZ prefix, but above that just some specialties, some special attributes which we haven't used today because for your basic setup you will not use them, are not so good supported cross-browser, but this is not so interesting in this usage like we may use it here. Yeah, that's actually all about it. I'm looking for your comments. I hope you learned something new. And, yeah, see you next time. Goodbye.